Hey everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Voyager, Season 5, Episode 24, Relativity. So I liked this episode, I thought it was good, but I thought it could have also been better. So it's almost a sequel of sorts to Season 3's Future End, the two-parter, and I don't know if necessarily this would have been better as a two-parter, but I thought that they could have handled things a little bit differently. So the opening scene is fantastic. It's great, where we see Voyager in dry dock and Janeway's walking around with an admiral, and she's just showing how she knows everything about the ship. We see her sit in the captain's chair for the first time. It's just great. And then of course she ends up walking by this ensign who is 7 of 9 in a science uniform, the first time we've seen her in a Starfleet uniform, and it's great. So clearly we can tell that there's something going on here. We see Lieutenant Carey again, who we haven't seen since the first season, and all sorts of stuff. 7 ends up dying, and then from there we go to this time travel ship, and they're like, this is the third time. If we time jump her again, it could be like irreplaceable or whatever. And they're just like, do it! And so we see the Doctor, and he has kind of a great scene where 7 of 9 in the present is having a difficult time. Like, she's like seeing double and stuff, and she's like, I checked the database and I think I have this disease. And the Doctor's like, nah, you just got space sickness, and injects her. And she's like, so what about the database? You are the database. And he's like, don't call the database, just call me. And it's basically the equivalent of us being like, oh, I stubbed my toe, I checked WebMD, and I have cancer. And so it's kind of a fun scene. There's my dog, Little Bear. Little Bear. So, anyways, overall, it's kind of fun. We get to the great scene where they're playing ping pong, and it's, who is it? It's 7 of 9 in Paris against Kim and B'Elanna. And Tom is like, here we go, and does that final strike, and then the ball freezes in midair. And so it's kind of fun because then we see 7 of 9 finally get taken out, and we realize that this is Captain Braxton, who's played by a different actor, which was the character from Future's End from Season 3, and how he talks about how, like, Janeway's a nuisance, and he caused her all sorts of trouble and had to live for decades in 20th century Earth, and he's just really bitter about it. Well, to kind of boil all of this down, it's, and there's the whole of Voyager starts having these weird time discrepancies where, like, sickbay to the Neelix is like a 7-minute difference. So we know something's going on with the temporal flux. Well, anyways, they start talking about how, like, time has changed and there's all sorts of different stuff, and on Voyager a bomb is placed and it's throwing everything off, and so they have to keep throwing 7 of 9 back in time to find the bomb, which she has this great line where she mentions the first contact and how the Borg were present when Zefram Cochrane made his first warp drive and stuff like that. Anyways, to kind of jump to the end, like, all of this is super interesting. It's really well done. And then, of course, the person who planted the bomb was the future version of Braxton, because he's so bitter against Janeway. And he has future temporal psychosis and all sorts of stuff. And so they have to arrest him. They have to arrest his present. They have to arrest, like, the 3 different versions of him and all sorts of stuff. And it starts to get to that Back to the Future syndrome where you're just like, who is who again? Like, I can't even keep track of this. And like I said, maybe if they had done this as a two-parter, it would have kind of balanced out a little bit more, because from the beginning of this episode to the end, like, you get some sort of time travel headache where you're trying to keep track of everybody, and even Janeway's brought into it where she's like, 5 years ago I saw these readings, 2 years ago I saw these readings, and they're like, okay, so now you're going to know that you saw 7 of 9 when you first boarded the ship, but now you got to keep it a secret, and all sorts of stuff like that, and it just gets really, really convoluted. Like, overall, I thought it was an enjoyable episode, but I didn't think it was the greatest episode it could have been. For those who have seen this one, what did you guys think? Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for Warhead.